Assalamu alaikum. Good morning for those who are joining from Europe, and good afternoon for those who are joining from Asia, and good evening for those who are joining from Australia and New Zealand, like me. Welcome to our important session titled How Zakah and Sadaqah Can Make a Difference for Refugees. The number of people forced to flee conflict, violence, and human rights violations and persecution has now crossed the staggering milestone of 100 million for the first time on record. According to a recent report from the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, IDMC, there are 53.2 million people displaced inside their borders by conflict. In this regard, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, has been doing a great job around the globe. In 2017 and 2018, UNHCR started piloting Islamic philanthropy approaches and accepting Zakah funding. In 2019, UNHCR formally launched the fund called Refugee Zakah Fund, a trusted, compliant, and effective distributor to use the power of zakah to transform the lives of refugees and internally displaced persons. So UNHCR's Islamic philanthropy report showcases the impact of zakah, sadaqah, and other Islamic funding received by UNHCR, and it conveys the importance of using Islamic philanthropy to support displaced persons around the world. This is absolutely a marvelous work carried out by UNHCR. So let us now watch a short video of the displacement crisis which is happening currently around the world. Here we go. I'm sure that video touched the many hearts, those who are watching and taking part in this event. So now we have some special distinguished guests with us today to enlighten further of this whole noble cause. So let me introduce the first guest to the audience. This is none other than Moey, the Partnerships Officer of UNHCR based in Singapore. Welcome to the session, Anne. And could you kindly provide an overview of Islamic philanthropy in general and UNHCR's Islamic philanthropy program? If you can elaborate to us, to the audience, it will be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irshad. And thank you, Crescent Rating, for inviting us to be a part of this wonderful event. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, partners, and friends, thank you all for joining us for this very important conversation that we are going to have today. As Irshad mentioned earlier, there are over 100 million forcibly displaced persons worldwide. Unlike many of us here who have the luxury of choosing when we want to travel and where we want to travel to, people who are experiencing war, violence, or persecution do not have a choice. For most parts, they have to resort to fleeing their homes in order to feel safe, and often have to make a very dangerous journey to safety, either to another country or to another city or province within their own countries at just a moment's notice. As a humanitarian agency, UNHCR provides life-saving assistance and protection to people forced to flee, and we also develop long-term sustainable solutions for them. The recent crisis in Ukraine, I think we are all familiar with what's going on there, The recent crisis there just joins a long list of terrible situations forcing people to flee their homes. We must also not forget about the crisis in Syria, which has been going on for 11 years, and the crisis in Yemen, which has been going on for 7 years. So, after so many years of conflict, Syrians and Yemenis are struggling to look to the future with hope. And then, of course, there are so many other crises around the world that all deserve our attention and our help. So, to help us to deliver more humanitarian assistance and to reach more beneficiaries, we launched our Islamic philanthropy program a few years ago. Using the Refugee Zakat Fund as a flagship mechanism, UNHCR plays the role of an efficient zakat and sadaqah distributor to support refugees and internally displaced persons globally. As per the fatwas received, UNHCR is committed to maximizing the impact of zakat by distributing 100% of zakat received and subsidizing distribution costs from other non-zakat sources. So since the launch of this program, funding from Islamic philanthropy partners has reached 4.5 million beneficiaries globally. Zakat funds alone supported 3.3 million refugees and internally displaced persons in Asia, in Africa, and in the Middle East. So this is living proof of the power of zakat and of Islamic philanthropy at large. Zakat and Sadaqah funds have also helped achieve several sustainable development goals, including no poverty, clean water and sanitation, and good health and well-being, amongst others. Many refugees and internally displaced persons that receive assistance from us fall under 4 of the 8 categories of zakat recipients. They are poor, they are in need, they are in debt, and they are stranded travelers. Most zakat distribution at UNHCR is in the form of multi-purpose cash assistance. So this is a very empowering way to help refugee families. Cash assistance preserves the dignity of vulnerable families, giving them the option to decide on their priorities and also on how to meet their needs in a way that makes sense to them. So we have observed through our regular monitoring exercises that most refugees use this allowance to pay for essential necessities such as rent, food, healthcare, and education for their children. Another upside of cash assistance is that it allows refugees to purchase goods from local businesses. So this means that it injects money into local economies and also fosters better relationships between refugees and the host communities. Due to limited funds, however, we can only provide cash assistance to the most vulnerable refugees. So, what do I mean by most vulnerable refugees? I'm talking about families comprising widows and their children, or refugees that have serious medical conditions, or refugees that have disabilities. This is just to give you an example of what we mean by extremely vulnerable refugees. We are also working on other forms of zakat compliant activities in the form of goods such as shelter kits, hygiene kits, education kits, poor relief items, input for livelihood activities, amongst others. So, for example, in 2020, in Pakistan, thanks to zakat funds, Afghan refugees received productive assets to help them to start their own small scale businesses. So, things like cattle, food processing equipment, sewing machines, and other assets were distributed. And all these beneficiaries that were selected to receive these assets received training on how to manage their assets, and they also received enterprise development skills training. So all these trainings that they receive helps them to understand how to manage their small scale businesses. So this is in a nutshell what we do here at UNHCR in terms of Islamic philanthropy. At this stage, I would also like to emphasize that partnerships is at the core of what we do here at UNHCR. We are never able to implement any programs or any activities on our own. And so I would like to just say that we are committed to joining hands with Islamic philanthropy partners worldwide to maximize the impact of zakat and sadaqah through effective distribution activities. Here in Singapore, and sorry, just finishing up. Here in
Yeah, please go
Singapore,
ahead. Yes.
yeah. So here in Singapore and in Asia, we have only recently just started to proactively build our Islamic philanthropy program. And however, even though we are quite new, relatively young in this space, we are extremely proud of the partnerships we have built so far. So, in fact, some of our partners are here with us today. We have Crescent Rating, who is hosting this wonderful event. We have the Rahmatan Alamin Foundation. We have the Arab Network at Singapore here with us. So these partners have been supporting us for quite a number of years now, and we really thank them for recognizing the challenges faced by displaced communities and for standing by their side. It's so heartwarming to see the growing support from the local community here in Singapore. We hope that more organizations and individuals would follow in their footsteps and come on board to help displaced communities worldwide. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And it's an excellent overview of the programs that UNHCR is currently pursuing. I'm sure it's a team effort, and also I'm sure the partner organizations will continue to support this noble cause. And it's, as I mentioned, as I started, it's a staggering milestone of reaching 100 million. The conflict, because the people forced to flee conflicts and violence and human rights violations and persecution. So it's a huge number, and it's first time on record. So I think we all have to support, and I'm sure you'll keep up the good work for times to come. Yes, and also I'd like to mention a few words about our commitment as Crescent Rating, what we have been doing with UNHCR. As you are aware, that Crescent Rating has been closely working with UNHCR in raising the awareness of the refugee crisis and has taken several initiatives in the past. Let me quote some examples. Now, the first example could be Crescent Rating launched a Ramadan campaign, namely Pledge Your Lunch. There's no lunch during Ramadan, so what we thought, okay, let's have this as a theme. Pledge Your Lunch. It ran for 2 consecutive years during Ramadan, and it has been very well received by the public, and we got contribution. And of course, we have been partnering with UNHCR in this whole effort. So that's one of the initiatives that we took. And also in 2019, Crescent Rating and UNHCR jointly published a report on forced displacement. This was an important report. I mean, if you want, anybody wants to review or to take a look, you can access Crescent Rating website. It's there for you to read and to understand the gravity of this whole issue, what's happening currently in the world. As Anne said, it's the duty of myself, everybody, those who are participating here, organizations and individuals from around the world, to participate and help these displaced and refugees so that we could be able to make a better world tomorrow. Okay, let me introduce another 2 guest speakers for this session. I think they would enhance further, the awareness further on this particular topic. First, of course, Brother Muhammad Faizal Othman, the CEO of Rahmatul Alamin Foundation. We call it in abbreviation wise RLAF. Also, Sister Farah Bahajaj, the Vice President of Arab Network of Singapore. So let me start with Brother Faizal Othman, the CEO of Rahmatul Alamin Foundation, to share your organization's philanthropic efforts, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Irshad, and good afternoon, everyone from Singapore. Well, RLAF was incorporated in 2009 with a very simple vision of wanting to build a caring and compassionate community. And we do this by promoting and supporting activities and programs that project the RLA spirit, or the Rahmatan lil Alamin spirit, or translated to English, it's called Blessings to All. There are 3 key thrusts in RLAF in our work. One is, of course, to build the youth capacity. Second is to support community projects. And the third one, which I think is related and relevant to the discussion of today, is to facilitate humanitarian relief. And RLAF has been doing the humanitarian relief and post-relief projects with the intention of building the lives of the communities affected. And these include the refugees as well as the internally displaced persons. And we closely work together with our partners, as what Anne has mentioned. It's really very important for us to work with local partners who specialize in providing the on-the-ground solutions. And these post-relief development projects have more sustainable impact in giving hope that enable the survivors to rebuild their lives. So RLF becomes a platform for people in Singapore to support humanitarian relief efforts through donations. It used to be that we put donation boxes in the mosques in Singapore, but COVID-19 came. We were not able to put up the donation boxes, but people were very supportive when we switched our operation using online platforms. And what they do is just to donate through the QR code that they see in social media and so on. And thus far, since inception, we have collected more than $12 million to support 53 overseas campaigns. And this is mostly done in collaboration with ground partners like what Anne mentioned. One of which is, of course, the project involving people in Yemen. And this is with the good collaboration with UNHCR. Sometime in 2017, we supported people in Yemen, and recently, last year in 2021, we also held a campaign to support people in Yemen who are affected by the crisis. Overall, there were about $2.9 million collected from Singapore, and we passed this to UNHCR for them to give support to the communities in Yemen in terms of healthcare, shelter, as well as social support. Today, I think Samar may give a little bit more insights, or of what is happening in Yemen. Yemen appears to be the worst humanitarian crisis, if not one of the most humanitarian crises, and they need many much more support. So we're thankful to UNHCR for collaborating with us. Others would be example like support for Gaza. Last year, we collaborated with UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East. That was a record because within 9 days of campaign, we collected 4 million Singapore dollars for the people in Gaza who were affected by the crisis. Overall, 144,600 people were provided with food supplies, and 630 people were given secondary healthcare, specifically to administer insulin to those who suffer from diabetes. We also do a lot of other projects for the refugees. One is Syrian refugees in Turkey, as well as the refugees fleeing to Bangladesh. But other forms of assistance that we do give, for example, like this year, we supported people who were affected by the Malaysian flood to give them basic household needs like food, as well as hygiene kits and psychological support. And early this year as well, we also assisted the people in the Philippines who were affected by the Typhoon Rai by supporting them with drinking water, hygiene, and sanitation. So I take this opportunity for us in RLAF to thank all the donors, but especially to the partners for the collaboration and making it happen. And we do really hope that we will receive continuous support in our future campaigns. Thanks, Irshad.
No worries. Thanks, Brother Faizal. Honestly, when you spelled out the numbers, the number of, the millions of dollars that the Singaporean brothers and sisters have donated is amazing. MashaAllah, may Allah accept all their contributions. And also, Rahmatan Alamin, the foundation is doing a great job. I think it's a very good example for other organizations around the globe. You're not limiting to only particular areas now, even flood relief in Philippines and even in Malaysia. You have been extending your arms. So this is what we expect to create a better world tomorrow. All right. Thank you once again, Brother Faizal. Now let me ask the same question from Sister Farah to explain your contribution and the way your organization is functioning at the moment. Thank you. Sister Farah, can you hear me? I think it's a technical glitch.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Those in Singapore, good afternoon. Those in Australia and other parts of the world, whatever time zones you're in, a very good day ahead.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank Crescent Rating and UNHCR for giving us the opportunity to share with you to the wider public what ANAS or Arab Advocate Singapore is all about. Just a slight, a brief intro about what ANAS is all about is this. We are we are registered with the APRA, which is the Accounting and Corporate Regulatory Authority of Singapore, as a not-for-profit company limited by guarantee. And unlike RLAF, we don't have IPC status. All right, we are manned by a group of volunteers, all having full-time vacation professions, and some of whom from the academia, business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals, who come together with a common objective, which is to help alleviate the status of the underprivileged, both locally and overseas. Yeah. And we have our main three core pillars, which is culture and heritage, education, and humanitarian aid. And that's where our philanthropic attempts are being made. Essentially, we all know philanthropy is about alleviating the pathetic state of welfare of the underprivileged. So how do we do that? Now, mind you, we're a small outfit meant by all full-time employees. So we do not have the means nor the scale of the kind of work that RLAF can do. Okay, so we envy you, RLAF. Okay, we wish one day we can be like you guys. So, but nevertheless, because we have common objectives, so with that limited resources, we're able to do quite a bit of things. And among them is this, that, okay, first of all, how do we get our appeals from? Normally it's through blasting to families, friends of friends and all that stuff. And of course, we use our social media handles, you know. So we want to captivate the youth. We go into Instagram and stuff like that. Others get F&B emails and WhatsApp and what have you. Now, the beneficiaries that we do via donations and zakats are both for local and overseas. Let me tell you a bit about what we do in Singapore locally. Yeah? We of course, during Ramadan, it's very easy to get zakat because people are more forward-looking, more giving, you know, because of the sacredness of the month. So we give zakat to the poor. We also have bespoke assistance to the poor and the needy based on their requirements. Example, like it could go as like house cleaning, house decluttering, house painting or repainting, and sometimes even like companionship, because a lot of these underprivileged people are, you know, they lack companionship. They're all lonely people. So we do that. So our philanthropy goes not just beyond not just the dollars and cents, but we also go into dedicated personal time and effort, okay, to help with the needies. So we act like a sort of like befriender. Yeah. So among our befriending service would be like to bring them for hospital visits, you know, to the physicians, or to even buy them food and bring it to their homes in order that they get a decent meal for the day. And of course, our educational aspects, where we come up with scholarships and bursaries to deserving students in Singapore. Now, we also do this for the internally displaced people and you know, I'm sure we all know, right? There are a lot of Yemeni refugees or IDPs, they call it, in Malaysia. Yep. Now, the statistics from UNHCR Malaysia is staggering. There were at one time 10,000 plus refugees in Malaysia, scattered between Penang, Kuala Lumpur, Selangor, Malacca, and Johor. But what I was to understand in the last couple of months is that quite a lot of them have left for Belarus. That was before the Ukraine war came out. So we do not know the fate of these people, but suffice to say, for now, there are about easily 8,000 plus still stranded in Malaysia. And the thing is out of that 8,000 plus, 3,000 are of school-going age.
I see.
And only a handful are going to school.
Mm-hmm.
So when we found out about this, ANAS made special effort to sort of like focus on providing or raising income funds to help put through some of these girls and boys through schools. The sad thing about them in Malaysia is that they cannot go to mainstream school. So we are able to, thank God, one of the private schools called International Modern Arabic School in Malaysia that gives a hefty subsidy to accommodate these students. So presently we have about 30 over students studying in IMAS, okay, which is of international standards.
Right.
And not only that, we found out that some of the students were weak in science and maths. So what we did is we had a Zoom session, found out their needs, and then we even had 2 postgraduate students, Yemeni origin, in Singapore. Because of cultural affinity, we get them to volunteer as tutors, and we had them tutored over Zoom. So these students are based in Malaysia. The Zooming is tutors from Singapore. And what was most heartening is this, that in spite of this refugee children schooling there, in spite of their dire predicament and circumstances, when we spoke to them, they still harbor very nicely ambitions such as to be a doctor, engineer, teacher, stuff like that. So it's really very, very fulfilling for us to know that in spite of their deprived background, they have such noble hopes to go forward in life. So we gave them hope in no small measure, And then not only that, we also, before COVID, we feasted a big feast, iftar feast in Kuala Lumpur, getting about 400 over families in there, and they enjoyed the food so much. So that was pre-COVID. COVID time, we had no choice but to stop it, but we intend to carry on, inshallah, in future. And we also give food baskets and cash to the needies in those areas. All right. Of course, we have our people on the ground level who tell us whom to give and where to give and all that stuff. And at the same time, also we also do humanitarian work in Hadramaut for the IDPs in Hadramaut, whereby during the pandemic, we sent two batches of medical supplies and PPEs and all that stuff. All right. And we also, during the big flood in Yemen, we again gave cash assistance, and also we bought home furniture for them, such as fridges and washing machines and all that stuff to replace what was swept away. Now, all this couldn't have happened without, of course, the kind input and from our donors and sponsors and volunteers. So this in principle is what we do for now.
It's absolutely very interesting to see that how the cash donation plus non-financial donations and can make big difference and put a big smile on the youth. Beautiful, well done, Sister Farah Bahajaj, the Vice President of Arab Network of Singapore. We wish you all the very best to expand further your network and to support more and more, and also creating creating a strong leaders for the future, and also from now on put a big smile and with a big hope. All right, so let me start with another important guest who is connecting from Yemen. So this sister is Sister Samar Almarhabi, the field officer of UNHCR based in Yemen, who will share with us how the refugees Zakat Fund has benefited the refugees in Yemen. So she's connecting from Yemen. So we are going to get some the latest updates from
Good morning,
Samar.
Or good morning.
Sister Samar, could you kindly explain to us what's the situation now and how the Refugee Zakat Fund is being benefited by the refugees in Yemen?
Thank you so much, Irshad, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present and reflect how Zakat is supporting the needy refugees and IDPs in Yemen. First of all, Yemen remains a
I think there's an issue with the connectivity, so let's wait for Sister Samar to join us again. You know, it's pretty hard to connect from Yemen, where it has been basically is affected with all kinds of infrastructure at the moment. So let's wait for a couple of more minutes and for Sister Samar to join us. Please bear with us. Until Samar comes online, and would you like to explain to us what sort of activities you have planned for 2022 and beyond when it comes to displacement and refugees? And your mic is muted. Yep. You found the
Sorry, I lost the whole window and I couldn't find the button. Anyway.
No, it's okay. No, it happens. It happens. Don't worry. Go ahead, please. You got the question? Yeah?
Yeah, I got the question.
Please go ahead.
I think in terms of what our plans are for this year, trying to think of what I should say, because there's plenty that needs to be done. As you rightfully mentioned earlier, there's 100 million possibly displaced persons worldwide. I think right now our biggest emergency that we're looking at is the Ukraine emergency. You know, we have 6 million people, refugees from Ukraine. Within Ukraine itself, close to, I think, 10 million that are being displaced internally within Ukraine. And these people, they need shelter, food, water, you know, in terms of their immediate needs. So we are busy working with our partners on the ground and also working with government authorities to help respond to those needs. For the refugees who have made their way to neighboring countries like Poland, Hungary, we are helping the government authorities to register them, because we want to make sure that they are accounted for. And just one thing to note is that when we register, when these refugees are being registered, we are also able to understand what their priorities, what their needs are, because they're all different. Some of them are unaccompanied children. That just means that you know, they need to be referred to the right authorities and the right associations that deal with children. Some of them are women, and some of them have medical needs. So so this registration process is the first step usually when we deal with people who are first forced to flee. And I think our colleague Samar is.
Samar is Sister Samar, please proceed. I mean, you can start explaining to us the ground situation and how Zakat Fund is helping the refugees in or displaced families in Yemen. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry for this disconnect. This is an example of the bad situation here in Yemen. I mean,
absolutely right.
Thank you so much. So this is how, I mean, how I explained that really the economy here is collapsed, and more than 80% of the total population live below the poverty line. The nature of the displacement, coupled with a socio-economic downturn, continues to impact the life of millions of Yemenis and thousands of refugees and asylum seekers, pushing them to negative coping strategies. Actually, above all, Yemen remains a serious protection and displacement crisis. The first quarter of 2022 observed a significant increase in the clashes between the warring parties, with almost one civilian killed or injured every 1 hour. During the first month of 2022. The situation, however, has changed. Obviously, in following the signing the truce agreement on 1st of April 2022 between the parties to the conflict. The agreement actually was fostered by the UN Special Envoy, and lots of hope that everything may change. While the news of this truce agreement has been widely welcomed by the international community and hope to alleviate the suffering of millions Yemenis, the humanitarian situation in the country remains extremely dire. and the needs is still massive. The humanitarian situation also in the country is poised to go even worse between June and December 2022, with the number of people who likely will be unable to meet their minimum food needs in Yemen, possibly reaching a record 90 million people according to the new integrated phase classification IPC analysis on Yemen on late March 2022. For example, in February 2021, approximately like 100 families just reached Sana'a Governorate here in the capital city, seeking safety and security. They fled from the conflict between the warring parties from different governorates in Saada, Hudayda, Hajja, and different governorates. These IDPs actually left their homes and assets behind, seeking safety. They arrived in a very difficult situation with no shelter, no food, and no basic items to keep them survive.
Yeah. So how do you find, I mean, how the support by UNHCR, how it is basically perceived and how it's been distributed, and how do you find the impact, the support extended by the UNHCR, and how you see on the ground the benefits, and because you are from the ground, you know what's happening there, so you could explain to us the support by UNHCR when it reaches out to the people or those who are in need, and how it has created an impact in them.
First, today UNHCR has a well-established presence across Yemen. As you know that, or maybe you don't know that UNHCR covers most of the 22 governorates and almost like 333 districts through the country. I mean, we have a country office or a reception center here in Sana'a, and sub-office in Aden, and field offices in Marib, Hudayda, Saada, Ib, and field unit in Kharaz camp in Lahj Governorate. UNHCR actually has lots of intervention. Broadly, UNHCR IDP interventions include protection services through community-centered and mobile activities, multi-purpose cash assistance based on socio-economic vulnerability, emergency and transitional shelter kit support, distribution of core relief items or the NFIs, CCCM services and support to the peaceful coexistence and social cohesion. In addition, also that UNHCR continues its comprehensive response for refugees and asylum seekers. For example, those newly displaced families that arrived to Sana'a, we just send our partner or the implementation partner in the field to assess the situation of those families, to assess their shelter, which is actually they are living in the open. They don't even have a shelter, unfortunately. They don't have income. They have no food, even the basic foods. They don't have also this one. So we just assess all their vulnerabilities and see if they are, and we check that they are really eligible for our support. We provide them with NFIs. We provide them with a very small shelter, kits and shelter tents, NFIs, and we provide them with cash assistance so that they can buy like some basic foods. They can, address any need they have.
So yeah, it's basically, thanks, Mr. Samar. I mean, it's absolutely a very, it's very interesting to note that you're covering 22 districts of Yemen.
Governorates.
Sorry, governorates. Yes, that is huge. That means the infrastructure to cover the whole country. I'm sure, mashallah, UNHCR is doing a wonderful job. And not only your shelter, you are looking at different or diverse requirements of the public or the people of Yemen. So we should encourage this. I think now the time for us to open up the floor to questions. And if somebody has any questions, please feel free to type your questions in the chat box. So I'll be able to pass these questions to the panelists. Okay. Um, until then, I just want to continue with that. Let me ask this question from the Faizal. Faizal, what are your plans for rest of the year? Any other campaigns that you have planned for this year, 2022?
So for this year, as I explained earlier, we have local projects as well as overseas project. This year we are focusing on one local project, which is called the President's Challenge. And what we are planning to do is to help and give support to the disabled people in Singapore. So we work together with a few organizations that represent the disability field, and we try to make some collection, and we'll pass the money to the President's Challenge, who will then give this money to these organizations. But we also plan to lead in organizing activities between the disability social service associations together with other Muslim organizations in Singapore, so that there can be some form of way for these organizations to support the disability social service associations.
Yeah.
Other than that, as and when there are humanitarian crises happening in the world, we will assess whether or not there is a possibility for us to work together with our partners and do a collection to help the people who are affected by this crisis.
Yeah. Thanks, Faisal. It's absolutely very interesting to know that you are going to focus the disability sector with your partner organizations so rest of the year and within Singapore. So it's well-focused effort, and I wish you all the very best on behalf of Crescent Rating and the team to become it should become a successful project for this year as well. All right. So let me ask the final question from Sister Farah. Do you have any other plan, as the Faisal said, for this year, rest of the year, 2022? Yep, you can hear me, Sister Farah? No? All right, so let me ask this question from Anne. And since you couldn't finish the answer, any other special campaign that you have lined up for this year? I know it's a crisis in Ukraine, but do you have any other planned campaign for this year?
Yes, I think let's talk about maybe our plans in Singapore. So we have World Refugee Day coming up on June 20th. So we want to take this opportunity to raise as much awareness as possible of the displacement crisis amongst Singaporeans or people based in Singapore. And then we have World Humanitarian Day coming up as well in August. So we want to continue to do more awareness raising events. Hopefully we can work together with our partners to organize some of these events. So stay tuned. Farah and Faizal, I'll be contacting you quite shortly. And then, of course, yourself as well. Our potential partner. And then, apart from raising awareness, of course, we'll be ramping up our events related to fundraising as well, because as you know, plenty of humanitarian work needs to be done, and none of it can be done without funds. We all know that. We need the funding in order to be able to carry out our work. So from now to the end of the year, we'll be launching a number of awareness-raising campaigns in conjunction with a few big days. And we'll also be continuing to work with our partners to raise more funds for all these emergencies that's happening around the world. Thank you.
Beautiful. And I wish you all the very best as well under your leadership to get all your partner organizations together and to fulfill the requirements of the needy. The last question from Samar. Sister Samar, would you like to share with us what is the immediate need for Yemeni the citizens at this point of time? I know you told us that you've been covering a vast area in different areas. What is the immediate requirement for the displaced people in Yemen?
Actually, the need is very high, and the IDPs and refugees, they need lots of things. They are exposed to risks through a lots of issues. I mean, they need like to ensure for them at least some food, some shelters, or to repay some debt on their shoulders, and they need like even the basic things like oil, gas cylinders, food, you know. Because they don't have anything from these things, they just send their children to beg in the streets, or maybe to take them out of the schools to just, I mean, work in any kind of harmful child labor. But though I think that it's worthy to tell you also good stories that to show how the impact of zakat
Yes,
in Yemen.
please.
Actually, zakat, yes. So actually, zakat makes a really a good positive impact on the life of those vulnerable families. It contributes, the zakat contributions goes toward the legitimate causes and benefit those most in need and with the greatest impact. Zakat funding actually just reach directly to refugees and IDPs in a form of cash assistance, good services, and support refugees facing hardship, providing life-saving and immediate relief. This kind of support, or the cash, zakat cash, helps the eligible and most vulnerable people from either refugees and IDPs, including families comprising of widows and their children, with vital good or cash assistance to cover their basic expenses like rent, food, healthcare, or debt repayment. I still remember once I was on one of my field missions, I met one IDB in Damar, North Yemen, whom she left just with her family, Al Hudaydah Governorate, at the time of the war, at that time, leaving all her assets, all her home behind, and the shelter and everything, seeking for a secure place and ensure some basic things so she can be, living in a good way. So she fled to Damar, which was her first destination for displacement. She arrived as a stranger, of course, to that city with no support, with no help. She sought or she approached one of our community centers. We just sent some team who assessed the needs of that family, Najat and her family, and based on the needs, the high need that she was in and the difficult situation, we provided her with multi-purpose cash assistance, which was funded by Zakat by Al-Thani at that time, and that it was before Ramadan, which was a perfect timing. She spent the money to buy food, to buy basic things, and gas cylinders, sugar, oil, and other basic food baskets for Ramadan. And also the remaining money she bought like some clothes for the children for the Eid vacation. So she was feeling like very happy. Toward the support that she received. So this is how zakat positively have impact and support in the life of those very needy people.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful experience that although it's very sad to see that being what's happening now, but also how Zakat Fund can help the needy, and that can fulfill the desire. I mean, that can fulfill the requirement of the needy and the poor. I think we have come to
Exactly.
the end of the session. I think there's no questions because I know, I mean, the all four panelists basically they explained really well of what they're doing, and thank you very much, Anne, for of the wonderful work that UNHCR is doing, and also together with the partner organizations. Yeah, and I wish you all the best on behalf of the Crescent Rating and the team. And also, I'd like to thank Faizal Othman, the CEO of Rahmatan Alamin Foundation, RLAF. And I wish you all the best. And also, it's very interesting project you are going to take over in order to focus the disabled community in Singapore. And also Sister Farah, the Vice President, Arab Network of Singapore, and the way she has been managing the financial and non-financial contributions and carrying out diverse activities for displaced people as well as the refugees. Also, Sister Samar, for connecting us from Yemen with all the difficulties, and I really appreciate for your time, and all four of you to be together today and to enlighten us what is happening in the world of needy and the poor, especially when it comes to displacement as well as the refugees. On behalf of the Crescent Rating, I thank you, especially our audience, those who are attending from across the world, from Europe, Asia, and Australasia, and Middle East, for attending this session. Thank you very much. As well as I appeal you to think about how best we can distribute our zakah and sadaqah, and also to distribute among the organizations which have the infrastructure for distribution and disbursement of funds, and provide the solution to the humanitarian crisis which is happening around the world. And thank everyone once again, and thank you very much, and hoping to see you everyone once again in another session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.